Hello, everyone. We now have even more people. I mean, there's so many people, I can't even keep track of it, but it's super exciting to have you all here on a Wednesday evening. And it's really great to start reading all of your stories as well. And I think even just seeing the number of different people on this call and the kind of diversity of people as well is a real reminder of why this project is so important. But we're going to hear more about that later. I'm just going to give a very quick overview of what we're going to cover on the call, and then I'm going to hand over to the people who really know what they're talking about, because we've got some amazing people. So
while we're waiting, also, I think our special guest Ken Loach might even already be on the call. So here it is, Ken. That's great. We're really looking forward to hearing from you in a minute. And just bear with us, and you will be unmuted when it is your turn to go. So yeah, really excited to be here this evening. Incredible that we've got 200 people on the call already. And over you to get started.
Yeah, great. So my name is Richard, and I am helping Momentum with the Videos by the Many project. And we have got a really great agenda. So the very first person we're going to hear from, you can see here, this is Chloe, and she works at Momentum doing a huge amount on kind of strategy and organizing. And this is one project that's part of a much bigger strategy. So we thought it'd be really good to just hear a little bit about why this is such an important new project in the overall plans for the election. So there's not a huge amount of time, and we're going to win it. Then we're going to hear from Samuel, who you may recognize from a lot of the Momentum viral videos. He's had loads of experience making videos, but he actually started off just on his own with a smartphone that he used to balance against his computer. And so he's got a real insight into how one individual voice can really help the movement. Then we're incredibly lucky to be joined by Ken Loach on the call. So I'm sure you've heard of Ken, but he's a film director who has had more experience than probably anyone of using film to try and show what life is really like under the Tories, and also build the powerful Labour movement that we need to win. Then we're going to have a short summary of just the details of exactly how we're asking you to get involved in the project. And Sam's going to share some of the tips and the expertise that will enable you to make your video in the best possible way. So I'll just reiterate the two quick actions, just in case people weren't there before. So the very first thing we're asking you to do is to just drop in the chat a quick introduction to yourself, where you're calling in from, and then why you're so fired up to join the call today. So what are you most passionate about? And then if you can go to videosbythemany.com, and we'll put that link in the chat, and then sign up on the form there. That's how you actually become a real part of the network. So I'm just going to hand over to Chloe. And if you have any questions throughout, just drop them in the chat. We've got someone who's monitoring them, Emil, who works at Momentum, and we'll try and get back to as many and answer as many as we can go along and do.
Hey everyone, so I'm super excited to be here on this call this evening. I think the Videos by the Many project is one of the most exciting things we're launching in this election, and I genuinely really can't wait to see what you all come up with. One of the reasons I'm so excited about this project is because it's taking something Momentum's been doing really well for a while now, which is their amazing video content, and it's thinking about how we can make that even better in order to help us win the election. So to do this, it's really using our plan to win in our election strategy, and taking that and applying that to videos. So there's two particularly important bits of our plan to win, which this project is all about. And the first of those is people power. And the second of those is asking our amazing volunteers to step up so that we can win big. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about those two parts of our strategy and why they're so important. So Boris Johnson has the millionaires. He's got the mainstream media and most of the establishment on his side. When it comes to money and resources, we can't compete with him. But what we do have is we've got you. We've got loads of people power. We have hundreds of thousands of people across the country inspired by Labour's vision for transforming our country. And they might be ready to make small donations or to volunteer huge amounts of time to our campaign. So it's this people power which is going to help us to beat the millionaires and the media. And in this, we're asking every single one of you to help us make that happen. So last election, we got really good at harnessing people power to take to the streets and win people over on the doorstep. We flooded marginals and we got thousands of people out knocking on doors. If we're going to win this time, we need to keep up all of that amazing work and all the brilliant things that our activists on the doorstep are doing, but we need to do even more too. So what I'm super excited about this evening is to take some of those strategies and principles that we've been using so well when we're out canvassing and really, really start using them online too. So this leads to the other key part of our strategy, which is this time we're not only asking more people to get involved, but we're also asking every single one of you to step up. So just by stepping up by this evening, cancelling your plans or whatever you've done to be here on the Zoom call, you're already stepping up. But we're going to ask you to do even more. So when we're campaigning for our campaign teams, this means asking people not just to go to a phone bank, but to organize one. It means not just to go out canvassing, but to make sure that you bring along your friends and family too. And it's exactly the same online. So when we ask you to step up online, you might previously have shared or watched one of Momentum's videos, but this election, we're going to ask you to go so much further. We're going to ask you to actually step up and help us make them. So the next 5 weeks are going to be the most important of our lives. Sam is going to talk you through exactly why you making these videos is going to be so completely important and have such a big impact. What we have is a historic opportunity, and the choice has never been clearer. It's either disaster capitalism with Boris Johnson or it's socialism with Jeremy Corbyn. And this time around, you are Labour's secret weapon. So we really do need you to do more than you've ever done before. And it's only by stepping up your commitment that we will win. So I know you're going to come up with loads of amazing content over the next few days. And I genuinely really excited to start seeing it shared on social media, coming up in my Twitter or Facebook feed. And it's going to be really amazing. So thank you all so much for being on this call. Thanks for all the amazing work you're going to be doing. And I really look forward to seeing it. So yeah, thanks so much. I'm going to step over now and make way for Sam, who's going to be giving you even more amazing information about this project. So yeah, good night.
Thank you so much, Chloe, and welcome to everyone who has joined since I was last talking. We've now got an incredible number of people, and so I'm really excited to pass over to Sam. Do some of you recognize Sam from a lot of Momentum videos? I'm sure if you're on this call, you do, but he's got a huge amount of experience making videos, but he also started off just as someone who picked up his smartphone and decided to take the plunge and just make something. So he's going to talk a little bit about why this project is so important, and then we're going to hear from Ken Loach.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Samuel. I work here at Momentum in the social media team. I used to make videos actually before I worked at Momentum, just doing selfies and talking about disastrous policies of the Tories. So I've got experience in that field. I'm really happy to be on the call this evening. I think we should probably start from the relationship that the media has with Corbynism and the Labour movement in general. And I think most of us on this call understand that the media is less than favourable with Labour. Sometimes there's a complete distortion of what Labour policies are actually going to do, especially for low-income people. One of the examples I like to use is all of us on the call understand that Labour has a massive plan of investing in local communities that have been, as we know, left behind. That obviously requires a lot of money. And a lot of us are familiar with the media tropes when we announce these plans. So for example, there's the question of how will we pay for it? Where's the money going to come from? And all the magic money tree gaps that everyone keeps on talking about. But what's really interesting is that if you just look at the newspapers, a lot of the time the policies around how these things are going to be funded are often shaped in a way that makes it look like low-income people will be carrying the burden of paying for that kind of stuff, when in actuality, a lot of us on the call who are familiar with Labour and familiar with Corbynism understand that the plan is to tax higher earners, specifically over £80,000. I'm unsure about the specific number, but even those who are earning over £80,000, I think their contribution is going to be marginally greater, nothing huge. So that's just one way that the mainstream media can misconstrue what Labour's actual program for working people, for ordinary people across the country is going to be. So and another thing to mention about that is also the people who are in positions of power, people that own these ways of information, of getting information out. So the press barons are really influential and powerful people. So we're really up against it. There is a huge imbalance of power there. And what we're trying to do is reshift that. So the next part of this is how we then change the narrative. how do we get to change what the media is saying about Corbynism, what the media is saying about Labour. And that's where important the individual voices come in, your voices. So what we found and what studies consistently show is that, for example, if you're watching the news and you hear a tragic story, you're going to empathize with that person. I'd be scared if you didn't. But you usually empathize with people when you hear tragic stories on the news or from a distance. But it's a completely different thing to hear a story from someone who you know, who you can relate to. Then the story becomes a lot more personal. So for example, if someone is talking about cuts who you don't know, it's sort of, okay, well, you know, it's cuts, that's kind of bad. But think about someone who lives in your area and they've got a camera and they're talking about cuts that you've also experienced. All of a sudden, that becomes a lot more real to you. That issue isn't an abstract thing that you think about. It's something that affects you and your local community. So that is the power of individual voices. And that's what we're trying to do in this election. What we're trying to do is, obviously, we're all here at the Momentum office and we're representing millions of you across the country who are fed up of the Tories and fed up of cuts. But what we want to do is decentralize that narrative, and we want to give it to you. We want to give you the power to talk about what the Tories have done and how they're cutting services, but also to talk about canvassing, to talk about how you are excited about the Labour movement, about what you are doing with groups of people to get Labour's message of renationalisation, of funding our NHS, of funding education out there. That's what we really need to see. So it's about amplifying individual voices to make sure that the Labour message gets out there. So if people are making videos and they're going out there and people are, in a sense, relating to what they're seeing, because you're seeing someone who looks like you from your community. So that's the importance of videos by the many. So the plan in concrete terms is, and this is already going on, by the way, we're seeing a lot of people doing this already. We're getting people to upload videos using the hashtag videos by the many. And what you're going to do in that video, it could be, by the way, it could be 30 seconds. It doesn't have to be long at all. But you can just pick a topic that's important to you. So even as we're talking now, you can be sort of thinking about the kind of topics and the issues that really rile you up and make you angry or happy, either about what the Tories are doing in your local communities that's bad, or what riles you up in a good way about what Labour's proposing to do in your community in terms of spending and really investing in those communities. So as we're having this discussion, you can also be thinking about what Labour can be doing for you and really how the Tory cuts and even things like foreign policy that really get you angry. For example, for me, one of the things I used to do before I worked at Momentum was make videos on foreign policy. I hate what we do abroad, and that spurred me to start making short videos. Doesn't have to be long, as I've mentioned before, about how foreign policy is bad, about how cuts are bad. You know, all these things that the Tories are doing. That's what we're trying to get out there. So that's the plan in concrete terms. You can film this video on your phone as like a selfie. Like I said, it can be very short. It doesn't have to be long. You can upload it to Instagram. You can upload it to Facebook. You can upload it to Twitter. But here's a crucial thing. And TikTok, by the way. I've been told that we can also upload to TikTok. Now, I'm a bit older, so I'm not quite familiar with TikTok. But I understand it's some kind of music sharing app. I don't know. I don't know these things. I'm 24, but apparently I'm too old for that. But anyway, so you can use the hashtag videos by the many. And what that allows us to do is see what people are talking about. So once we've seen a lot of people using the hashtag, we can then pull it up and put it on our social media and amplify it. So all of a sudden, it's great. Momentum works hard. We're all working in the office here, but suddenly you have control of the narrative. You are the ones that are putting out the narrative that we're putting out against the Tories. The cuts, the foreign policy, disastrous foreign policy is all being highlighted by you. You've got to change the narrative. So some just key points of what we want to do in terms of the videos by the many. We're trying to support local mobilizing and canvassing efforts. We're trying to encourage people to turn out to vote, which is so important. If you're not registered to vote, please do it. It literally takes a second. It's so simple and it's so easy and so crucial for your future. Also, we want to change audience's mind on who to vote for. So people consider another party. I mean, they're traditional voters who vote Tory, but I imagine quite a big chunk of them would be quite happy to look at some of these videos and think, wow, that actually affects my local community. Maybe I can consider voting for someone else. So these are all the concrete plans about videos for the many. We really, really hope you get involved. A lot of people a lot of people are already doing it. So yeah, we really want to hear from you. I'm going to pass over back to Richard.
All right. Thanks so much, Sam. And how many of you have seen the hashtag My Tory Story? Because we've even just seen in the past sort of 24, 48 hours, that started off as an individual telling a particular story, and then Momentum and a lot of you then amplified it, and now that is trending with these particular stories. So we have 237 people on this call, which is amazing, and we've had 41 people already join up to the network. So I was pointed out that I got the URL slightly wrong. So we are videosbythemany.com, which Emil is just going to drop in the chat again. So if you haven't signed up already, and that's quite a few of you, then just log on and join the kind of 40 plus people that have just signed up. So now, just before we actually give some examples of these videos and give you some of the specific expertise and advice of how to make your own, we are really lucky to hear from Ken Loach. So Ken is calling in right now, and great. Yasmin
hi.
says,
Yep.
Hi, Ken. Can I just
Yeah.
hand over
Hello.
to you?
Okay. Hello everyone, and very pleased to have the chance to say a couple of words. I'm way out of my depth in this technology. I'm still stuck in celluloid and old-fashioned technology. So anyway, I'll suggest a few thoughts that that you might find interesting or possibly even useful. I think one of the key things when you listen to the voices of the Tory party speaking on television, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Johnson himself, they represent a class of people that most of us have no contact with. Rees-Mogg's latest blunder about Grenfell typifies it. And what Labour's strength is the voices and the experiences and the integrity of just the people we know, the people we come across in our work. Maybe you work alongside people, whether they're old people or young people or whatever age, whatever background. There's so many people with stories that just illustrate the rotten nature of this society that is so divided and so unequal, and where our public services have been left to decline. We've lost so much of the fabric of the society in our communities and in our towns, whether it's youth clubs or parks or libraries or whatever. And the people we know, the people we meet, the people who represent all that's best in the Labour movement have so many stories to tell. And if you can capture them, that's a massive weapon. I mean, there may be teachers, they may work in transport, there may be claimants, there may even be small businesses. I spoke to a business in Gateshead. It was a fair trade organisation, and he was absolutely dismayed by what was going to happen as regards Brexit, but also had a sense that people had taken the decision and you couldn't just ignore it, which the Liberals are going to do. So there's so many people who will talk. Yes, just a plain portrait would be good. Now, forgive me if I'm saying some people will be far more sophisticated than this suggestion suggests, but what we need is clarity, simple clarity. Now, it may well be when you film someone that they ramble, and you get a good few sentences here and then a good few sentences there and a good few sentences further on. If you've got the capacity to cut it on a computer, then obviously select the good sections that make a coherent statement. And if you need a shot to link the two, so you can put the soundtrack over a shot in between the quotes, maybe get them at work, maybe get them in their home, maybe get them in a situation that is typical for them and that endorses the subject they're talking about. Or maybe not them, maybe it's something that they're talking about that will just illustrate it. Simplest thing, I mean, just an ambulance or something if it's the NHS or whatever. But find 2 or 3 shots that you can put in that will link the good quotes, because simplicity and clarity are absolutely essential. If it's a slightly longer piece, one thing that I always do and I always find essential is that you write out a plan. So that maybe the 3 or 4 points. What is the issue? Why is it happening? How can it be resolved? And what's Labour's position in enabling that solution to be found? So those simple questions: what is it? Why is it happening? How can we put it right? Based on what's Labour's role? Based on that personal experience, because it's meeting the people through your work. It's the integrity of their faces. It's the genuine language they use. So it's not speaking in cliches and the political jargon. The truth will cut through, and if you can find those people, that's really important. A simple technical tip, and again, forgive me if everyone knows this, but a simple technical tip: if you're filming on a phone, most phones have a zoom on. I think they probably know better than me, but I think most phones have a zoom on. Don't put the widest point of the zoom if you're filming someone, and stand just close to them, because they'll look pretty horrible. Select a picture in the middle of the zoom, provided the sound will reach you. Put the picture in the middle of the zoom, and then just stand a little bit away and maybe shoot them, I don't know, just across the chest, so that it's a sort of what we call a medium close-up or something. Not too close, because that's too anatomical, and not too wide, because you won't really be able to read them, read their personality. So kind of like they do on the news, mainly, just to sort of match head and shoulders plus a bit, so that we can be drawn into what they say. I mean, maybe one possible is, you might think of a whole range of people who have just got something very short to say. Then it could just be simply, I'm a teacher and this is my experience, or I'm a I'm a care worker and this is my experience. I'm a driver in the gig economy, or this is my experience. And just 5 or 6 really short quotes together, so one after the other, could be really quite powerful. If you feel what they say can be said in just a very few sentences. Direct into, if you're holding the camera, direct into you is good, because then it communicates directly with the audience. I was interested in what Sam said about foreign policy, because that again, a simple point we desperately need to make, which I think is hugely popular, is and I think Jeremy and John have committed in the last manifesto to basing foreign policy on international law and defense of human rights, and not selling arms to countries who are ignoring that would be really important. Whether we can know the countries we're talking about, but finding people who are victims of that contempt for international law and ignoring of human rights. Find people who are victimized by that, by what's happening, and then hear their story, and then say, Labour will not supply arms to these oppressive regimes. It's very, it should be powerful, and it should be very popular. I think that's all I can say for the minute. I could ramble on, but I think it's a great project. It's the integrity and the clarity of what people say, from very young to very old. Everyone's got a story, and you'll be great at getting it.
Thanks so much, Ken. Such great advice in such a short period of time. So incredibly grateful that you're able to join the call. And I think both your advice now... Can I add one little thing?
Of course.
Okay. One little tip. If you're photographing someone, it's slightly more flattering. Be at eye height or slightly above eye height. It just will make them look better. The worst thing you see in amateur videos, and particularly selfies, is somebody where the camera is pointing upward at somebody, and everyone has a double chin. And it's not great. It's not a simple thing. But just be either eye height or just fractionally above, and not too close and not on the wide angle. then they look really good. If you're photographing a Tory, wide angle, right under his nose, then we'll win the election in one go. Then anyway, good luck everyone. Really, really. I sort of banged on so long, but I'm sure you'll make some great stories, and I'll look forward to seeing them.
Thanks so much, Ken. No, I think everyone on the call could hear you talk for about 3 hours and not get bored. Yasmin says, bang on longer. And also, when you gave the advice about double chin, everyone just quickly checked to see if they had a double chin right now. All right. Thanks so much, Ken. And
Thanks, Ken.
yeah, really appreciate it.
So solidarity to everyone. Let's win the bloody election for Christ's sake, for everyone's sake. Cheers.
Thanks, Ken.
Fantastic. I think I just saw 50 hands go up at the same time. And there's some amazing comments in the chat that we can share with you afterwards, Ken, because you're dialing in. You might not be able to see it now, but there's no shortage of love for you and your work right now, which is amazing to see. So what we can summarize following up this call, what Ken said. There's also been some great questions just dropped in the chat as well. So there are questions about kind of editing software and subtitles and a lot of those things. And so it's worth me saying that we're actually able to kind of compile a lot of those questions, and we'll keep a copy of the chat and then come up with the best possible answers. But we're also creating a Slack group. So Slack is an online communications platform that just allows you to write questions and for you to all type with each other. So if you've signed up to the form, and we've had 68 people do it so far. So if you've not done it already, go to videosbythemany.com and sign up right now. You'll get an invite to join the Slack, and we can take all the questions we've got here, do all the research that we can and try and answer them. But also a lot of the knowledge will come from a lot of you as well. And so that's why we don't want to control the conversation. We need to kind of hear from you and hear what your questions are. So so we've got a couple of questions already. I think it's maybe best if we follow up with them afterwards, because I don't want to wait any longer to pass over to Sam. So Sam is now going to talk to you about a lot of the kind of actual practical details in terms of messaging and how to film and how to take part in the project. So we're also going to show a couple of examples as well. So
Awesome.
Great. I'll just pass over to Sam. Great. Cool. And so keep dropping your questions in. We're reading them all, and we're going to be able to respond to all of them, and we'll put them in the Slack.
All right, guys. And just once again, reiterate our thanks to Ken Loach for joining us on this call. That's really good advice. Thanks, Ken. Okay, so let's just get straight into it. What to say? As I mentioned earlier, it's always good to find a topic that you really care about, something that really evokes a massive passion inside you. So for example, that could be the NHS, that could be renationalizing our railways. I know that's quite a popular one on the left. I'm personally in favor of that. Or the abolition of tuition fees. You need to think about how it's affected your life and why you're so passionate about it. I know there's a sort of a tendency sometimes when we're on the left, sort of, we have all these views, but it's really important to go back to the beginning and think, why did I get passionate about this issue in the first place? So if it's homelessness, for example, it could be when you grew up and were seeing that, it evoked a real anger in you, and now that you've seen it grow under the Tories, you really want to stop homelessness. So it's all about picking that topic that's really important to you and what makes you passionate. Third thing is, you don't need to be a policy expert. I certainly am not. I understand quite vaguely, what is right and what is wrong. I think that it's a travesty to see people sleeping homeless on the streets. And I don't need to be a policy boffin to advocate against that. So, don't feel intimidated and feel like you've got to be able to, handle a question time sort of audience. Be yourself. Understand why it is that this issue makes you angry or makes you really want a change in the government. And then that is what's going to help win people over. That optimism, that drive to change things, and recognizing things don't always have to be the way they are. For guidance, you can check out the briefings available on our website, and it's going to be delivered to your inbox each week.
So we'll send the first briefing out as soon as it's ready. It's not on the website now, but the one thing that we'd love for you to do right now, just before we show an example, is to actually think which is the issue that's most important to you right now, and just drop that in the chat, because that's the issue that we'd love for you to make the first video about. So I'll write it up here, but we're just asking you to just have a think, and we'd love to see the range of issues that you all are most passionate about, whether that means you've been personally affected or whether that's just something that you're really excited about in terms of what Jeremy Corbyn's going to bring.
Awesome. So finish on that example now.
If you want to, are you ready with the example? Great. So we've got an example that was posted up yesterday, and some of you may have seen this already, but it just shows what one person's personal story can really achieve. All right, you might need to click on the window to open it. Okay, I think you should be able to see the video now.
I think people can see it. I've got the screen open here.
I was diagnosed with microscopic polyangiitis, MPA. It's a rare form of vasculitis. It is the illest I've ever been. The doctor said that without treatment, I would have been dead within 3 months. He also said that 50 years ago, it would have killed me. But now, with the immune suppressant drugs, I'm doing well. I joined an MPA Facebook support group. To my horror, I found out a lot of Americans can't get the treatment they need to keep them alive. Although they have insurance, the insurance companies won't pay for the treatment. I'm worried that Boris Johnson will sell out the NHS in a trade deal with the Americans. They've already had some talks, see below. If you value the NHS for yourself,
All right, well, not entirely unexpected, slight technical issues there, but we hope you can kind of get the picture from that video.
Awesome. Yeah. Sorry for that glitch. So the next step is how to say it. Your personal story and your passion is what's going to win people over. So just feel free to naturally just start filming and let your enthusiasm come out naturally. It can help to think about who you want to watch the video. So what particular demographic are you aiming this at? So if you think about friends and family that you have who really care about the NHS, you want to be thinking about the kind of lines that you could say in this video that will make them really sit up and think, wow, actually, I want to protect the NHS. Like the guy that we just watched now, he was very clear in what Boris Johnson is trying to do with the sell-off to Donald Trump. So we really need to be thinking about what kind of lines will work with our friends and family and people we want to win over. You also may want a more positive spin on it. You may want to invite your friends or people you know to join you canvassing, to turn out to vote or reconsider their support for another party based on the issue that you are concerned about the most. But you have to remember to be really specific when you're asking people to do something. If you want, we've got a simple format that you can follow. It goes as this. So you basically introduce yourself, mention where you're from, and I think that's really important. I think I mentioned in the beginning about sort of if you're watching a video and someone's from Coventry and they're talking about the same issue, and you watch that video, it's like, oh, okay, that person is also experiencing the cuts that me and my family have been experiencing in this local centre. So that often adds legitimacy to the argument. Explain why you're so passionate about the issue. Explain your personal story. It doesn't hurt to say, hey, if you feel comfortable, open up about things that have happened to you, and that often really helps to resonate with people on a more human level. Explain why you think Labour is the answer and what they will do. So, like I said, a lot of us are sort of like very understanding of what Labour wants to do, our programme. So really just go out there and say, hey, listen, cuts to the NHS. I keep on coming back to this because I think it's something that everyone can relate to. What is Labour's policy? Well, Labour wants to fund our NHS adequately, not some just sound bites. I'm sure a lot of us have seen Matt Hancock held to account by Susanna Reid on Good Morning Britain. These guys do not have a plan for the NHS. They're just making up stuff as they go along. So we really want to be pushing out that Labour has been saying consistently from the beginning, and that's really important, that we have a plan for the NHS, we have a plan for education, we have a plan for foreign policy. And then lastly, tell people how they can help get Labour elected. And that obviously includes stuff like canvassing and getting people mobilized to get out there. And I think we could be really optimistic this election, because I think tens of thousands of people are ready to go. So, and I'm sure all people in this call are too. I think we've got another example you want to show. Is that going to?
Yeah. So if you haven't put your the topic that you're most passionate about, that you want to make a video about in the chat, please do it. And we've had a huge number about the NHS, which is something I feel really passionate about. But also Green New Deal, also homelessness. So please add to that now.
I'm a firefighter in Bingley, and we're facing further cuts in coming months. So, yeah, I'm voting Labour. I'm a single dad, struggling to make ends meet. But it's not just local issues. We need to get these Tories out.
Awesome. So that's exactly the kind of thing we're looking for. It's just a basic story. I opened up on something quite personal about him being a single dad. Like I said, you don't have to open up if you don't feel comfortable. We're not asking you to do anything you don't feel comfortable with. But often, if you are comfortable, that kind of stuff does resonate with people watching the video. So filming your story, it's really easy. Now, I'm looking at you all directly in the camera, and I'm telling you stuff, and I'm making my story heard. So that's exactly what we want you to do when you're making your video. Make sure you look into the camera and talk dead in the eyes of the person listening, person watching, and tell your story confidently. If you're filming someone else, make sure they do the same, and that way what you're going to say is going to pack a punch. If you're not comfortable editing, just film it in one shot. That's absolutely fine. I think the two previous videos that you've just watched were people doing exactly that. And then you can trim the end and the start of the video when you upload it eventually. Speak loudly and close to the mic, but be sure not to get your head and shoulders out of the shot. And just make sure you're quite centered in the video. Location. Choose a good location. You can record your video anywhere, but being outside or somewhere that connects to the theme of the video is actually really great. So I'm trying to think of so for example, let's say you're talking about the NHS. We keep on coming back to this. How about going out to the front of your local hospital where you have recognized there's been a lot of cuts? You can stand outside and say, listen, this is my hospital here. X amount has been cut from the budgets. All of you people watching in my local area, you should know that this is as a result of disastrous Tory policy. So that's one of the things we should do. Find an appropriate location that matches what you're trying to say. Your video doesn't need to be long. It can be 30 seconds as a minimum. And longer if you're feeling inspired, but also do try not to go beyond a minute or two. It's for audience retention. People like to have a video that kind of gets to the point and sort of packs a punch, just like we said. Finally, just be yourself. Studies have shown that find that the most valuable way to talk to voters is by being genuine and being authentic and being yourself. So just imagine that you're talking to a friend at the pub or something. These conversations are actually usually the most effective. People can sort of change their minds in those kind of settings. So if someone's on Facebook and they're not trying to defend the Tories at the pub or something, and they're actually just by themselves watching a video about how Tories have done this and that, they can say, oh, I didn't know that. So what we're trying to find and what we're already seeing is many people starting to get their phones, doing selfies and sharing these videos, using hashtag videos by the many. Please get involved. It's going to be amazing. We're going to get so many people involved in this and really change minds across the country because it's ordinary people sharing their stories. And I'm very excited, as you can tell. Make more examples?
No, I think we can.
Okay. And then how to get it out there. Finally, we've got to get your video on social media. We want you to speak to people in your social network. So use all your social media platforms, whether that's just Facebook or Instagram or even your family's WhatsApp group. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but crazy times require crazy measures. Make sure when you upload the video, you accompany it by a short punchy statement. And if it's on a public platform, include the hashtag videos by the many. We can't stress the importance of this point any further. It's really important. When you use hashtag videos by the many, what happens is that we see that on our social media accounts. We see your videos. It pops up by you using that hashtag. So we can then amplify it from our social media platform. A lot of you are familiar with how many followers we have. I think we have 140,000 on Twitter. I think we have 30,000 on Instagram and over 250,000 on Facebook. And that's a lot of people. And just imagine if we are using videos by the many and thousands of people are using that every single day. We're pumping that out into the internet every single day. You can make this happen just by using that simple hashtag. What we've got here, you've got to Also, when you're on Facebook, a lot of you are familiar with Facebook as well, you can post into relevant groups. So I'm sure all of you know about Jeremy Corbyn for PM, off the top of my head, Jeremy Corbyn for PM ASAP. You know, there's all variations of it, but make sure you're joining these groups and sharing those videos inside those groups. And if you want to make it go further, why not challenge others to make their own videos and point them towards our website. So yeah, I'm just going to hand it back to Richard. So please get involved. Use hashtag videos by the many. That's hashtag videos by the many.
Thank you so much, Sam. We are really excited to launch this project, and also just even reading everything that you've been putting in the chat is amazing. So there's just a few that I thought I'd pull out, because obviously we've been here talking, but actually you're the people that are making this project happen, and you're the people who've got the stories that are really the heart of what we're doing. So Paula has mentioned that she works as a psychotherapist in the NHS, and she's just seen how much damage austerity has done in her everyday work. And she wants to support Labour in fighting to win and turn things around. So that is a video that I think the UK needs to see, and not just sort of friends and family, but it's often the direct people who are on the front line of the cuts that people trust. Theo has talked about public transport, so how they couldn't leave their home in London because it was so expensive. And now he lives in Belgium, where they have a national public rail system and can get anywhere in the country at any point for under £8. Now, I'm someone who uses trains a lot, and so even just knowing that that public transport system is possible is huge. And Kim has said, pensioners like my mum, struggling to make ends meet, online benefit applications, errors, impact on her finances, her housing associations not fixing the roof or shower pump, and the impact on her health. And I think that highlights another really important role that you can all play. So you might have your personal story, but also you might know people who have a direct experience of cuts or of campaigning. So as well as recording your own video, we're really inviting you to share the videos and share and amplify the stories of those people that you know, because often the people that are most affected, that I think Kim is pointing out, they might not have the technological access to the smartphones or the social media networks. So you've all joined this Zoom call. You've all, I'm sure, got smartphones or laptops that can record things on. So let's use those skills to amplify the stories of people who maybe can't do it themselves. So connected to that, we know that as well as a lot of people that really want to help out, we've also had a lot of filmmakers and people who've had experience making other kind of films before. So we're actually doing another call on Monday, which is directly for filmmakers and people who've got experience to then talk in more detail about how we might make other kinds of videos. So I'm just going to reiterate the really key things that you can do to make this amazing. So number one, go to videosbythemany.com, sign up to the form, and join the Slack group. So all the instructions should be there. If you've got any questions or having any trouble, then email us at videosbythemany@peoplesmomentum.com and we'll troubleshoot. So that Slack group is where we can share the videos that we've made and help amplify each other's. So then we're asking you to go away, and all of you have written some amazing points of what you're most passionate about. So why not tonight go and record your initial video for the project? So it can only take 5 minutes if you want to do it really quickly, but doing it tonight or tomorrow will mean that we start the project with a huge bang. And so following up from that, after you kind of make your initial video, we're going to send out a weekly brief. So you'll all be on the email to get this, but every week we're going to get some of that inside knowledge of kind of what the most important key issue for Labour is, what's in the press. And there's a huge power to not just individual people telling all of their different stories, but if a lot of us can speak up at the same time, that's how we start to really challenge the media agenda. And that's how we start to actually shift what's being talked about and make things trend. So I'm so excited to talk to you all on Slack and on email. And we are going to capture all the chat and kind of respond to the individual questions on Slack. And really good luck. I can't wait to see your videos, and it's been a real pleasure talking to you about the project. Great. So if people want to keep dropping notes in the chat, we can try and respond to them now. But otherwise, go and make your video. Do it right now. Pick up your phone, and by 8:30, we can all have a video up. All right. Thank you.